You were born free, in mountains that touched the sky. But the world had other plans for you. Your father taught you to hunt, to track, to survive in the wild before Rome ever knew your name. Your village had its own laws, its own gods, its own fires burning at night. Then the legions came, marching in perfect lines, like a machine that never stopped. They burned the fields, they burned the homes. They took the strong and killed the rest. You fought. Of course you fought. But one man with a spear is nothing against an empire. They put iron around your wrists. The metal was cold. The cold never left you again. You marched in a line of chained men, watching your homeland disappear behind the hills. Weeks later, you stood in a slave market in Rome, just another body to be priced and sold. A man in fine robes looked at your arms, your shoulders, your scars. "This one fights," he said. They sold you to a gladiator school in Capua, a place built to turn men into monsters. The walls were stone, the gates were iron. The air smelled of sweat, blood, and fear. Your new name didn't matter. Your old life didn't matter. Only one thing mattered now: the arena. Every morning began before sunrise. The crack of a whip, the shout of a trainer, the smell of sand. You trained with wooden swords until your arms screamed. Then they gave you steel. The other gladiators came from everywhere: Gaul, Germania, Thrace, all of you, broken the same way. At night, chained in your cell, you could hear men weeping. By morning, they pretended not to. The first time you stepped into the arena, the roar of the crowd hit you like a wave. Thousands of faces, screaming for blood. Your blood or his. They didn't care which. You looked at your opponent, a man just like you, stolen, sold, forced into this circle of sand. The signal was given. The crowd held its breath. And you did what you had to do to live. You won. The crowd cheered, as if you'd given them a gift, as if death were entertainment. You walked back to your cell covered in someone else's blood, and you felt nothing. Nothing at all. Weeks turned to months. You won again, and again. Your name began to mean something in Capua, but every win was another step deeper into the cage. The better you fought, the more they owned you. One night, in the dark of the barracks, you looked around at the men beside you. Men who had been farmers, soldiers, fathers, now reduced to weapons for someone else's amusement. You asked them a question that had been burning in your chest for months. Are we men, or are we animals? 78 men answered that night, not with words, with action. You had no swords, only kitchen knives, stolen from the cooking quarters, hidden under straw. The guards never expected resistance from men they'd already broken. That was their mistake. In the chaos, you fought your way to the armory, real weapons, finally, in your hands. You broke through the gates of Capua. For the first time in years, you saw open sky above you. 78 men ran into the countryside, hunted, but free, truly free, for the first time. You climbed toward Mount Vesuvius. Its slopes were steep, its peak hidden in cloud. From up there, you could see the valley below, farms, roads, and somewhere, Rome itself. Rome heard the news and laughed. 78 escaped slaves, a minor inconvenience, nothing more. But word travels fast among the enslaved. Whispers passed from farm to farm, mine to mine. There are men on the mountain who broke their chains, the whispers said, and they're still free. One by one, then in groups, then in floods, slaves began to slip away and climb toward Vesuvius. Shepherds who knew the land, farmhands who knew how to survive, all of them, done with chains. 78 became hundreds. Hundreds became thousands. The mountain was no longer a hiding place. It was an army. Rome finally took notice. They sent a force to crush this slave problem, once and for all. The Roman commander camped at the base of the mountain, certain the only way down was the single guarded path. He was wrong. You knew the land. You knew the wild vines growing on the cliffs. At night, your men wove those vines into ropes and climbed down the unguarded face of the mountain. By the time the Romans realized what was happening, you were already behind their camp. At dawn, you struck. The soldiers who came to hunt slaves woke up to find slaves at their throats. The Roman camp fell in chaos. Weapons, armor, supplies, all of it became yours. For the first time, your people had real shields, real armor, real Roman steel. News of the victory spread across Italy faster than any messenger could ride. A slave army defeated Rome. People whispered in markets, in fields, in mines across the land. More slaves fled to join you, gladiators from other schools, shepherds, laborers, an army built from the forgotten. You organized them, trained them, turned farmers into soldiers using the same drills Rome once used on you. 60,000. That's what your army had become. 60,000 people who refused to be property. Rome sent 2 consuls, each with their own legions, certain that real Roman generals would end this quickly. You split your forces, struck each army separately, and defeated them both before they could combine. For the first time in centuries, Rome itself felt something close to fear. You marched north, toward the mountains, toward the borders, toward home, and freedom beyond Roman lands. Your people could almost taste it, the mountains of Gaul, the road back to everything they'd lost. But not everyone wanted to leave. Some had tasted victory and wanted more. They wanted Rome itself. Arguments broke out around the campfires at night. Go north to freedom, or south, toward vengeance. Some of your commanders broke away, taking thousands of fighters south on their own. You felt the army you'd built start to crack, not from Roman swords, but from within. Rome, meanwhile, was done laughing. They appointed a new commander, Marcus Licinius Crassus. Crassus was wealthy, ambitious, and ruthless. He raised 8 legions, the largest force Rome had assembled in years. He didn't rush into battle like the consuls before him. He was patient. He was methodical. Crassus pushed your army toward the southern tip of Italy, toward the sea. He built a wall, a massive trench and rampart stretching across the land, sealing off your escape. For the first time, you were trapped. Not by chains, but by geography, by strategy, by Rome's full might. You had hoped to cross the sea to Sicily, to free more slaves there, and grow your army further. But the pirates who promised ships took your gold and vanished. There would be no escape by sea. Winter came. Food grew scarce. Crassus's wall held mile after mile, day after day. One night in a storm, you led your army through Crassus's lines, breaking through where he least expected it. You escaped the trap. But Crassus was relentless. He reformed his legions and pursued you south. Word came that more Roman forces were approaching. Pompey from the west, Lucullus from the east. You were being squeezed from every direction. 3 Roman armies converging on one slave force. You knew, somewhere in the back of your mind, how this story might end. You had known since Capua. But you also knew this. Every day of freedom you had lived was a day Rome couldn't take from you. Crassus caught up with your army near a river in southern Italy. There was nowhere left to run. That morning you gathered your commanders. The decision was simple and final. You led your horse forward, in front of everyone, and drove your sword through it. No one needed to ask why. There would be no retreat, no surrender, only the fight ahead. Your army formed lines across the field. tens of thousands, against 8 Roman legions. Across the field, Roman standards caught the morning light. Eagles, discipline, the full weight of empire. On your side, former slaves, gladiators, farmers, people who had nothing left to lose. The horns sounded. The two armies moved toward each other like two storms about to collide. You fought at the front, not behind your men, but among them where a leader belongs. Swords met shields, shields met spears. The field became a roar of metal and screaming. You cut through one soldier, then another, pushing forward, toward the Roman command, toward Crassus himself. Around you, men you had freed, men you had trained, men who called you brother, fought and fell. The Roman line bent under the force of your charge, but it did not break. Not yet. You kept moving forward. Every step closer to Crassus was a step deeper into a wall of steel. Blood, mud, noise. The world narrowed to the space in front of your blade. You took a wound, then another. You kept fighting. Stopping was never an option. Not now, not ever. The Roman ranks closed around you, soldier after soldier, blocking every path forward. You fell, surrounded, outnumbered, but standing until the very last moment, facing the enemy, not running. The battle raged on without you. By the end of the day, the slave army was broken. Tens of thousands lay dead on that field. Among them, somewhere, you. Romans searched the battlefield for your body afterward. They never found it. Not for certain. 6,000 captured rebels were crucified along the road from Capua to Rome, a warning mile after mile. Crassus wanted every traveler on that road to see what happens to slaves who dare to dream of freedom. For a while, it worked. The rebellion was over. Rome's order was restored. Life went on. But something had changed, quietly, in the minds of people across the empire. For 2 years, an army of slaves had defeated Roman legions, again and again. For 2 years, the most powerful empire on earth had been afraid of people it called property. That fact could not be crucified away. It could not be erased from history, no matter how many bodies lined the road. Decades passed, centuries passed. Rome itself eventually fell, like every empire before and after it. But your name did not fall with it. Your name kept being spoken, generation after generation. Writers wrote about you. Historians argued about you. Your story crossed languages, crossed centuries. 2,000 years later, people still know the name Spartacus, even people who know nothing else about Rome. Why? Because your story isn't really about Rome, or chains, or even ancient history. It's about the moment a person decides they would rather die standing than live kneeling. It's about 78 men with kitchen knives who believed freedom was worth the risk. It's about an army built not from soldiers, but from people the world had thrown away. You didn't win in the end, not in the way history usually counts winning. But you proved something that no army, no wall, no empire could undo. You proved that chains are only as strong as the fear that keeps them on, the moment that fear breaks, even for one person, even for one night. Everything becomes possible. Today, you don't wear chains of iron, but everyone carries something that holds them back. A job that drains you. A fear that controls you. A version of yourself you've been told to accept. Spartacus didn't wait for permission to be free. He didn't wait for the right moment. He looked at 77 other broken men in the dark and asked one simple question. Not, can we win? But, are we going to keep living like this or not? That question changed everything. Not because the answer was easy, but because the question was finally asked. Maybe your chains aren't visible. Maybe no one else can even see them. But you know they're there. You've felt them every day. in choices you didn't make, in fears you didn't face. Spartacus had every reason to stay quiet, stay obedient, stay safe inside the arena Rome built for him. Instead, he chose the mountain, the uncertainty, the fight, the chance, however small, of something different. History remembers him not because he was undefeated, but because he refused to stay what he was told to be. 2,000 years from now, no one will remember most of what felt urgent today. But the choice between staying in your cage or walking toward your own mountain, that choice is timeless. Spartacus made his choice in a dark cell in Capua, with nothing but kitchen knives and 77 other men. You have more than that. You have knowledge he never had, tools he couldn't imagine, freedom he died fighting for. The question is, what are you doing with it? Are you using your freedom, or just existing inside a more comfortable version of the same cage? Spartacus's story didn't end at that river, even though his life did. It ended in every person, for 2,000 years, who heard his story and felt something shift inside them. That shift, that small, dangerous spark of, maybe I don't have to accept this, that's the real legacy. Empires build walls to keep people in line. They always have. They always will. But walls only work as long as people believe they can't be climbed. Spartacus climbed his wall with vines on a mountainside, in the dark, with everything to lose. What's your wall? What's the thing you've told yourself you can't do, can't change, can't escape? You don't need 60,000 followers to make that climb. You don't need to defeat an empire. You just need the same thing 78 desperate men found in a barracks 2,000 years ago. The decision. The moment you stop asking, can I? And start asking, why not me? Spartacus is gone. His body was lost on a battlefield, his name almost erased by an empire that feared it. But here you are, 2,000 years later, hearing his story, which means the empire lost. His chains are dust. His enemies are dust. Rome itself is dust. But the question he asked in the dark, are we going to keep living like this? That question is still alive, right now, in you.